You are tuned in to Education Quest, and we have about 2 or 3 minutes before we'll get started. So we want to let everybody get settled in and join us on the chat. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. Welcome to Education Quest's financial aid program. It's at 6 o'clock and we want to be respectful of your time, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Before I turn the reins over to Joan, I just want to mention that we're broadcasting this webinar live, both on Click Meeting and on YouTube. And Joan's going to do a presentation, and then we'll be happy to take questions at the end. But don't save your questions till the end. Go ahead, put them in the chat if you would as we go. I'll keep track of those, and then we will come back and after the presentation and answer all of your questions. Also, if you wouldn't mind, let us know in the chat where you are tuning in from. And if you are a school counselor or a teacher and you've organized something at your school, we'd also love to know how many people are joining you and where you're from as well. So we're excited to go ahead and get started. And thanks for joining us. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to Joan Jurek, who is an expert in all things financial aid. Joan, go ahead.
Thank you, Reagan. Well, hello, everyone. As Reagan mentioned, thank you for joining us tonight for this financial aid session, how to pay for college. Tonight, we are going to go through how much will college cost? A lot, you might say. We'll talk about the different types of financial aid that's available to your student. We'll be looking specifically at the FAFSA application. And then we'll look at how colleges use that information to award student funding for college. And then last of all, we'll talk about where you can go to get free help with this whole process. So first of all, let's be sure you understand the terminology cost of education. This is the first step to the whole financial aid process, is that you understand how colleges determine the cost of education budget that they're going to use to award student funding. So when you look on a website or when you talk to an admissions representative, they're going to talk about the cost of going to their school. Within the cost of education budget, every school is going to calculate tuition and fees, books and supplies, And then they also allow for room and board and personal and transportation information. So when they take a look at the tuition cost, they're initially going to budget the student for being a full-time student. And then, of course, along with that will oftentimes come fees, whether it be fees for different labs or parking fees potentially. And then we look at books and supplies. But here, next of all, I want to show you room and board and personal transportation. Every student, no matter if they decide to live on or off campus, the college will budget for room and board and personal and transportation expenses. So I have a college student in my household. She actually lives at home and commutes back and forth to school. However, her school will allow that somebody is still paying for her room and board, her groceries, her electricity, and all those other living incidentals. So they're going to put together an allowance for those costs within that cost of education budget. Some of your students may choose to live on campus where they actually have room and board cost for living in the dorms and going to the cafeteria to eat their meals. In that case, you're going to be paying that directly to the college. But again, if that student is living off campus, the college will still budget that there are living costs associated with that situation. Same way goes for personal and transportation expenses. Whether the student is living on or off campus, the college is going to budget accordingly for those expenses. All of these expenses are calculated for one academic year at a time. One academic year, typically as a full-time student. So when we look at the average cost of our Nebraska schools, you can see we have a 2-year community college, a 4-year public college, a 4-year private college, and then our career schools potentially. So you can see the breakdown for tuition and fees, the actual direct expenses for going to college, and then the cost for book, supplies, room, and board as well. This just kind of gives you an idea. And if you happen to have one of our college prep handbooks at your fingertips, or you can also check out the college prep handbook on our Education Quest website and look at the virtual flip book version. If Reagan has a chance, she might put that website in the chat for all of you, and you can check out our flip book. And within that information, on page 5, we actually have all of the Nebraska schools' cost of education budgets for this current academic year. So not to fret, if you don't have a paper copy, you can check out that flip book and you can look at these costs individually. So now that you understand the the actual cost of going to school, you might say, well, we don't know for sure what it costs to go to our school. Well, again, here's an opportunity for you. We have the virtual college fair coming up in October, November, and December, where you would have an opportunity to meet with an admissions representative at your school of interest and talk to them about their cost of education budget and or their direct expenses. Remember, we have direct expenses that you pay to the college, and then all these living incidentals that are going to add up that the college will add on top of it. So check out our virtual college fair if you want to talk to any of the admission representatives. It's a great opportunity. If you don't have an opportunity to get on their college campus, here's where you can talk to those admission recruiters. And you'll see on my slide up there, if the student visits at least 5 booths, they will be entered into our drawing for a $500 scholarship. And we are giving away $500 scholarship at each of those programs for October, November, and December. So it's a great opportunity. Check out 5 booths and your name will be entered into that drawing, and your name will actually stay entered. So if you visit 5 in October, your name's going to stay in for the November and the December drawing. Check that out. Register on the Education Quest website for your barcode information and access to that college fair on October 12th. Now that you understand the cost of going to school, next question is, how are we going to pay for it? Actually, every student is eligible for financial aid of some kind. Not every student is going to qualify for the same type or the same amount of financial aid. When it comes to financial aid, student has an opportunity for scholarships, grants, work study, and student loans. Of course, scholarships, money the student doesn't have to pay back, right? The free money, money that we're hoping for to help bring those out of pocket costs down, hopefully significantly. Then we have grants, also a form of funding that does not get repaid back. It's an opportunity for maybe a low income based student to qualify for some extra funding to help them out with college. Typically, grants are different from scholarships in that grants usually look at the income base of a family versus scholarships. We're going to find out more about how you can earn those. Work study is a program that allows a student to work on campus and earn a little bit of extra incidental money. And then last of all, we're going to look at student loans. Money has to be repaid back, right? Remember I said every student's eligible for some type of financial aid, even if it is just student loans. And I tell you that primarily to understand that student loans are a type of financial resource. They are there to help the student with the cost of going to school. So it is considered financial aid. And in order to get federal student loans, you have to go through this whole process that we're going to talk about tonight. Let's look first of all at scholarship money. Where can we find the scholarships? Well, you have great resources. The number one resource that I recommend is at the school counseling office. Keep in mind that it's not the counselor's job to make sure the student gets money for college. They are there as a resource of information. They are going to communicate with that student and with parents, maybe through email, through bulletin, maybe through their website. It's important, parents and students who are joining us, if you don't know how that school counselor communicates, that should be your number one homework for tomorrow. Is find out how your counselor is communicating with you and make sure you follow up on it, because that's how they're going to disseminate the information to you that you need to take to the next level, whether that means applying for the scholarship or for college or whatever it might be. Now, the next section that you see up there is your colleges of interest. This is where the bulk of your scholarship money is going to come from. They want you at their school. And what better way to get you there than scholarship money, free money, money you don't have to pay back. But it's important for you to understand every college has a little bit different process when it comes to applying for scholarship funds. Some colleges will review you automatically once you've applied and been accepted. Other colleges might require an additional scholarship application. And along with that application, they might have a deadline date. Be sure you're checking into that very soon if you don't know the answer to those questions, because it's important not to lose out on those scholarship opportunities at your colleges of interest. As I mentioned, that's where the bulk of your scholarship money is going to come from. And typically, that's where the renewable scholarship money will come from as well. On our Education Quest website, we have a scholarship search program called Scholarship Quest. We have nearly 2,000 scholarships on this program. Keep in mind, it's not comprehensive. Unfortunately, there is no such thing as a comprehensive scholarship search. That's why you have to use all of these resources that I mentioned to you. Scholarship Quest, though, is a Nebraska-based search program. So I encourage all of our Nebraska students to set up a profile, put in their information as it matches different scholarships in the database. Then you will get information about those scholarships. You can also set up to receive emails about potential scholarships that are coming in and also match your profile. Take a look, check it out. You might have a scholarship opportunity for just doing that. Also, private organizations that maybe you students or parents that you belong to, such as the Co-op or maybe the Polish Women's Alliance Scholarship. There's a lot of different scholarships out there from private organizations, but you also want to be very careful of solicitation where it says free, 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 or your money back. Be very careful. If you are hesitant, there's probably a good reason to hesitate. Take it into your school counselor, call Education Quest, or talk to the colleges that you're interested in. Common scholarship criteria. We see everything across the board for scholarships based on talent, leadership, first generation, ACT score, activities, disability, military, gender. There's a wide variety of scholarships. Now, I would like to see in the chat, what is the number one reason why a student does not qualify or get a scholarship? What do you think that is? Let me see your answers in the chat. What is the number one reason why a student does not get a scholarship? They don't apply. Thank you very much. They don't apply. I know that that sounds silly to remind you of that, but I've got to remind students, even those one-time only $250 or $500 scholarships will add up. But students, you've got to do the work. You've got to put in a little bit of extra effort for it. You know, I tell students sometimes scholarship applications might only take an hour to fill out. That's an hour less of maybe tweeting or texting or talking on the phone. What is that, right? But just use your time wisely. Looking for scholarships is going to be a hard process, and that's why we want you to do it all year long. Even my juniors in high schools can start paying attention to what scholarships their seniors friends are applying for and what scholarships they are earning. Take a look now, juniors. It's not too early to get your hands on possible money as well, or at least get a head start on the process. And seniors, it's not too late for you, but definitely you're going to want to get busy on the process. We are very fortunate in the state of Nebraska to have the Susan Thompson Buffett Scholarship Foundation. Every year, the Susan Thompson Buffett Foundation awards nearly 1,000 full tuition scholarships. Now, those tuition scholarships are only for public colleges in the state of Nebraska. Public colleges are your community colleges, your state colleges, and your universities in Nebraska. So any students that might be pursuing an education from those three program areas, the Buffett Scholarship, I definitely encourage you to apply for. There are criteria associated with applying for the scholarship, just like every other scholarship. See, the number one criteria on there is financial need. As a result of your FAFSA form, the FAFSA calculates what's called the EFC, the expected family contribution. We'll talk more about that in a minute here, but that family contribution number has to fall below $10,000 as a number one criteria. So if your EFC is below $10,000, you definitely want to apply. Now, you can look on our Education Quest website. We have what's called the College Funding Estimator, and that's my favorite tool of all of our tools because it allows you to get a head start on the process. It allows you to see what potentially your family contribution number is going to be. So if that EFC number is below $10,000 and the student's GPA is at least a 2.0 scale, and they plan to attend that public college in Nebraska, then they definitely want to apply for the Buffett Scholarship. This is a renewable scholarship. If a student goes to a community college for 2 years, but it takes them 3 years to complete, it is renewable for that third year. If they decide to go on then for a bachelor's degree, that scholarship will go with them as long as they maintain the criteria associated with it. Good, great opportunity. Scholarship opens up November 1st, which is almost a month away. And then they have until February 1st to complete their application, get their letters of recommendation in, get their FAFSA results uploaded. So there is a little bit of homework, but it's a great scholarship opportunity. We also have some unique programs sponsored by our individual colleges in Nebraska. For example, there's the Nebraska Promise. Nebraska Promise is sponsored by the University of Nebraska System Schools, so UNL, UNO, UNK, the Ag Campus, UNMC, where a student who qualifies for federal Pell Grant or the family income is below $60,000, the Nebraska Promise will help them pay for tuition only at any of those schools. This is a renewable process by completing your FAFSA and qualifying every year. So they do have to review your status. But if your status qualifies, you have the opportunity right there. We also have the state college system grant program, the tuition guarantee. This works a lot like Nebraska Promise. The student does have to qualify for a federal Pell Grant. If they do, then the tuition guarantee program will take care of the tuition cost at their school. That's at Peru, Wayne, or at Shadron. It'll take care of that tuition cost then for that academic year. And note, I only say tuition, not fees, not books, not room and board, but that's where other scholarships can help you cover those expenses. And then Nebraska Wesleyan also has a very unique, very generous tuition program also for students who have financial need and qualify for federal Pell Grant. You can check out all of these programs again on our educationquest.org website. There's a resource tab with a list of all of these opportunities. Now, here's some scholarship opportunities for you tonight. Just for joining our program this evening, students or parents, you have an opportunity to register for our financial aid program scholarship giveaway. We are giving away 6 $500 scholarships to students or parents who actually watched the program tonight and received the private information to apply for this scholarship. There is no essay, there's no letters of recommendation, but you do have to complete a registration, and you will get that link later on in my program tonight. So stay tuned. You don't want to miss out on that. Stay tuned for the private link to actually apply for this particular scholarship giveaway. The easiest scholarship that you're going to have probably to apply for all year, except for the next two. The next one is Scavenger Hunt. This is also a scholarship through Education Quest. If you set up a profile on our Scholarship Quest webpage, you will then receive information on the scavenger hunt. If you complete the requirement on there and go through the website, your name will be entered for 2 $500 giveaways in the spring. The last one we have is what we call our Get Social Scholarship. If you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and you become one of the 250 followers, we congratulate you, because for every 250 followers, we are then going to post up an entry for you then to apply for the $500 scholarship giveaway. It's that easy. You just have to watch, because for every 250 followers, we will then post that scholarship application for you to complete and get your name put in for the drawing. So again, just some examples of some easy scholarships for you out there. Let's move on to grants. That was a lot of scholarship information, I know. Grants are based on financial need. You don't have to repay them. The most common type of grant is the Pell Grant. It's also the hardest grant to earn because it's based on the FAFSA. It's based on the result of your family's ability to pay for college. You'll see on this slide that the Pell Grant can range anywhere from $672 to $6,495. That is the range. Now, in order to qualify for the maximum $64.95, your family's ability has to be 0. So the family contribution has to be 0 on the results of your FAFSA application form. When the college sees the results of that EFC, that's what they use to determine the student's eligibility for these grants. Now, Pell Grant is what we call a portable grant. So if you're eligible for it at one school, you're going to be eligible for it at any school you choose to apply for, because it's based on the FAFSA results. It's based on that eligibility. We also have the Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. This is funded through the federal government. They give limited dollars to every college. Then the colleges can award that money to the student based on first come, first serve eligibility. So it is very limited in dollars, and that's why you might hear somebody say, get your FAFSA done as soon as possible. The state grant is also funding given to the colleges from the state of Nebraska. So the state of Nebraska, through lottery earnings, they put that money back into the hands of colleges, who then put that money back into the hands of students who have financial need. So again, that's up to the colleges to award that money based on the results of the FAFSA form. And last of all, you might see college-based grant money that the colleges use from donors and benefactors, alumni, where they have funds set aside to use for financial aid packages and give students some extra grant money to help them out with cost. Work study. Did any of you do a work study job in college? Let us hear from you in the chat. I did work study actually in the financial aid office. Pretty interesting that I'm still educating on financial aid, but don't ask me how old I am. Work study is a program that allows you to work on campus, allows a student to earn a little bit of extra incidental money to help out with a few expenses here and there. I always tell a student they're not going to get rich doing work study, at least not in dollars, but you can get rich on the resources and the people that you meet. It's an opportunity to get to know faculty, staff, also other students at the college campus. It's a way to earn and learn more about the college that you are attending. It's a way to get involved just and hear about different activities that are going on. Not every student qualifies for work study. And again, it is very limited in funding. There will be a question on the FAFSA form that will ask if the student is interested in work study. And I always encourage every student to say, yes, I am interested. Otherwise, you will not get reviewed for a work study job, but you can always turn it down. So if your schedule changes, you can always turn it down or decline it. But just because you say, yes, I am interested, doesn't mean that you're going to automatically get it either. Doesn't guarantee you. It doesn't obligate you. It's just an option. Then we have federal loan programs. This particular loan program that I'm going to talk about now is for students. It's the Federal Student Loan Program. Federal student loans are given to the students based upon their grade level status. As a freshman level student, you can see that the student can only qualify for $5,500. Then as they progress in grade level, they can borrow just a little bit more. So sophomore year, junior, senior year, you can see what they can borrow accordingly. So oftentimes I'll hear students say, oh, I'll just take out a student loan for whatever I need. Well, keep in mind that you are limited to what you can borrow under the federal program. Now, the interest rate is actually a fixed interest rate. So when a student borrows loans for this upcoming academic year, that interest rate is going to be locked in at the 3.73 percentage rate. So for the life of that loan, that is the interest rate unless a student would choose to consolidate later on. but every year the interest rate on new loans will change. But this particular loan is fixed at that rate. Now, pay attention to the last part of the screen up here. We have two different types of federal student loans. We have what's called subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized means the government pays the interest for the student while they're in college. So there's no interest accruing on this loan. Unsubsidized, which means not. Unsubsidized, the government does not pay any interest on this loan. So it becomes the student's responsibility to pay this interest. Now, this loan does accrue interest while the student is in college. So I always encourage the family to try to pay that interest if you can. Otherwise, you're going to be paying interest on top of interest. It's going to capitalize. So if you can pay it, great. If not, it's certainly an option to let it accrue if you have to. But just notice the two difference in that subsidized and that unsubsidized money. Then we have what we call the Direct Federal Parent Plus loan. Parents who are listening tonight, this is a loan borrowed in your name only. And I say your name only because you become the borrower of this loan for the life of the loan. The amount that you can borrow is going to be determined by the college. The college will take a look at how much their cost of education is, what we learned way back on slide number 3. They're going to take a look at the total financial aid the student has qualified for, and that remaining amount is what you can borrow under the Parent Plus. You don't have to borrow all of it. You don't have to borrow any of it. Again, it's just an option. This loan is also fixed interest rate. So for the life of this particular loan that you borrow for this academic year, it's going to be fixed at the 6.28%. And then every year when you add new loans, those loans will have a different interest rate. Now, we know what kind of financial aid the student is eligible for. How do we get it? How do we qualify? Well, next comes the steps in what we call the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. This is a government form no matter where the student plans to go to school. If they're staying in Nebraska or they're going out of state, this is a federal form that will be filed by the student and by the parent. The free application for federal student aid will open up on October 1st. That will give you just a few more days here before you can actually complete the form. Oftentimes we get asked, who completes the FAFSA form? Which parents are going to file the FAFSA information on the student's form? Let's take a look at these scenarios. What if we have parents who are married or remarried? That's pretty easy to understand. You're going to use both parents' information, whether it's biological parent or step parent. Your information is going to go on the form. The next situation, what if my parents are divorced or separated? Whose information gets provided? Then you are going to look at the custodial parent. Where has that student lived the most in the last calendar year? That is considered to be the custodial parent. If that custodial parent is remarried, remember the step parent's information will also be reported on the FAFSA. The third bullet, divorced, but my parents have equal custody. I go equally back and forth. Then you're going to take a look at the parent that provides the most financial support. And again, I might hear a family say, well, it's equal. We split expenses. Well, not to be sarcastic, but I always say that, okay, we have 365 days out of the year. Pick that extra day. Where has a student lived that one extra day? That's whose information you're going to use on the FAFSA form. I also highly encourage you that if you are using that parent's information on the FAFSA, that you're using that same information for the college admission application address as well. Then I have unmarried parents, but they are living together and they've lived together for always. They've just never gotten married. You will be required to use both parents' information on that FAFSA form as well. In the case of an independent student, if I have any independent students who are with us tonight, or guardians who might be tuning in, or counselors, if you have students with you in the classroom, if you have a situation where a student is an orphan, a ward of the court, in a legal guardianship or a homeless situation, they potentially will be considered an independent student. If that is a situation pertaining to the student or guardian, if you're listening tonight, please reach out to Education Quest. Please reach out to your school counselor to find out how that FAFSA form should be submitted, because there potentially will be extra funding available, but you got to complete it correctly. The first step in the FAFSA application form is obtaining what we call a student aid account, or some of you might know it as the FSA ID. The student aid account is something that the dependent student and at least one parent in the household is going to register for. You will go out to studentaid.gov and you will actually create an account. You see a little red arrow there? Up in the top right-hand corner, create an account is where you will do that at. Once you create that account, please write down the username and passwords, take a picture of it, copy it off, whatever you need to do. Because once you create those, they're kind of hard to go back out and retrieve without doing some extra steps. So please be sure you write those down. The passwords are case sensitive, so be very careful when creating those as well, or setting up your challenge questions. Again, student and that custodial parent. If it's a two-parent household, only one parent needs an ID. As I mentioned, the FAFSA for the 22-23 school year opens up in just a few days, October 1. When you file the 22-23 FAFSA application form, you are going to be using your 2020 income tax information. Now, just because the FAFSA opens on October 1 doesn't mean you have to have it done on October 1. Be sure you check with your colleges. Be sure you find out what their priority date is for completing the FAFSA application. Every school will have a priority date that they suggest you have your form completed by in order for the student to be eligible for all priority funding. So be sure you check out those priority dates. Every college is going to be different, so make sure you know what those days are ahead of time. But again, just remember it opens October 1. You don't have to have it done that day, so don't panic. Oftentimes, I will get questions about what asset information goes on the FAFSA. Well, parents and students, if you have checking and savings, if you have stocks, bonds, mutual funds, CDs, money market accounts, maybe 529 plans, or even rental property, that is going to be considered an asset. You will have to report the net worth of that asset of any of those programs. Sometimes get questions about business owners. Parents, if you are considered to be a small business owner and you have fewer than 100 employees and you own 50% or more of the business, then that business does not have to be reported as an asset. You will have to report the income, but you will not report the asset value of the business. So again, you report the income, but not the asset. Likewise for a farm. Farmers, you are going to report your income from the farm. There may be a situation where you have to report the asset, and there are situations where you don't have to report the asset. If you check out this slide, you'll notice your farm is excluded if you live on the farm and you operate the farm and it's your main source of income. Again, the asset is protected. The income gets reported as part of your income tax information. You will have to include the farm if you receive rent for farm ground or pasture. You'll have to include the investment farm if you're a member of a family farm partnership or a corporation, or you don't participate in running the farm. Maybe you live in town and you cash rent the farm ground that's 10 miles away. You have to report it as an asset. So a little bit of discrepancy there, a little bit of difference, I should say, on when to include it as an asset and when to exclude it. Again, make sure you know the difference. Either call the Colleges of Interest or call Education Quest if you have further questions. Now, just to let you know that coming up here next month, October and November, Education Quest is going to be having financial aid FAFSA tutorial webinars. Very similar to tonight's webinar format. It'll be approximately an hour long, where we will go through line by line situation of completing the FAFSA application form and be able to help you out with that. So just register. Back again, go onto our homepage under our events calendar, and you'll see the information there on how to register for one of the FAFSA webinar events. Now, here's where I like to talk a little bit about how income impacts the family contribution on the FAFSA form. These are two very, very quick scenarios. They're not totally cut and dry because there's a lot of variables that go into the formula, but these are just a couple of examples for you. So take a look up here. I have where income impacts the EFC for family A, B, and C. Notice the assets are all the same, right, at $50,000, but the income fluctuates from 50 to 150. So here you can see the family contribution number ranges from $3,100 all the way up to $41,000. So here's where you can kind of have an idea of family of four with an income situation under family A that might qualify for a federal Pell Grant. Whereas my family C example probably won't get the Pell Grant, okay? So this is just to give you an idea. But what if I take a look on the flip side of it and I take a look at how assets impact the EFC? So same income for family A, B, and C, different assets. Look at my variance here for the EFC results. $2,000 to $4,500. That's not a very big difference. Families will ask us, what can we do to hide our assets? What can we do to not have to report our assets? This is where I hope you understand that built into the formula are asset protection allowances based on the family situation, based on the age of the older parent. There are different scenarios where assets are not even going to be looked at. Here's where, again, I would tell you to run that college funding estimator to get an idea of how assets and income affect your family contribution number. Take a look at it, play with the numbers, and see what a difference it makes. After the FAFSA form has been completed, every student is going to receive what we call a federal SAR. We love acronyms in financial aid. The SAR stands for the Student Aid Report. This is where the government will email you a report that's going to confirm that your FAFSA has been processed, or if you need to have further action on missing signatures or missing or discrepancies of income, it's going to be also where you'll see that expected family contribution number. The student aid report is oftentimes asked for need-based scholarship programs like the Buffett or the Goodrich program through UNO. Oftentimes that student aid report is going to be asked for from those private organizations to see the financial need of that student. So student aid report comes to the student electronically, typically within about 3 to 5 days after that FAFSA form has been processed. Now, I understand 2020 income tax information, that was a whole year ago, right? Oftentimes there are special circumstances that have happened since then. And we will get families that will want to know, how do we let the colleges know about our situation? What if there's been a loss of employment, a loss of income, a death in the family, or extenuating medical or dental bills that we weren't expecting that's not covered by insurance? It is important for you as the family to let the colleges know what's going on in your household. And it will be up to that college of interest to let you know how they're going to review that situation. It will be up to each individual college to review you separately. So be sure you let all of those schools know what's going on. You have to be a self-advocate. Let them know the situation, how much it's impacted the family, what's going on, and if it's going to continue to impact that family. Be sure you let those schools know what those special circumstances are, and that's what they will take into consideration. So initially, you have to report the income as it is, but then work with each individual college on the special circumstances. Also, I want you to be prepared for verification. This is a term that you might hear the colleges talk about. Maybe if a student is missing paperwork, or if a college has to verify certain income or untaxable income, they're potentially going to ask the family to submit documentation to support the answers on the FAFSA form. Now, it doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. It's part of the federal requirement. So the colleges have to go through an auditing process. And if your file is selected for the audit, they want to make sure everything balances out. Verification will oftentimes be known to the student through their online student portal account. So once the student has applied for admission and been accepted, they will set up their online student portal account. And that's how the colleges are going to communicate with that student that something is missing or more paperwork needs to be turned in to the school. So that's why we say the importance of applying for college, getting accepted, so you're ready to roll with the financial aid process here in the next few weeks. Here's a very simple form. We've learned all about the cost of education, how the colleges determine it, what it means. We've learned about the expected family contribution, how the government calculates it with the FAFSA results based on income, assets, and asset protection allowance, etc. So the cost minus the contribution equals the financial need of the student. You'll see in that bottom right-hand box, here is the amount the colleges are going to try to award the student in financial aid. This is what it all gets down to. We learned all of that information on this one simple formula. Cost minus contribution equals the need of the student. How much and what kind of financial aid that college is going to give the student, we don't know until this process is completed. And every individual school will go through this process to determine the final dollars. And here's again why you have to go through the whole process of admission, acceptance in order to get that financial aid award package. Here's an example of a financial aid award that a college might give to you. This might be an example of a four-year public college where the cost of education is right around $22,000. Notice the college has awarded scholarship money, grant money, work-study loans potentially to meet that unmet need. This is where they're going to award these online account or online award letters using that student account, that student portal that they have set up. That student portal is so critical in this whole process. That's where communication is going to come in. So here's a very quick review. Student parents, you create your student aid account. That information then is used to complete the FAFSA form, which goes to the Federal Processing Center. That information gets sent to the colleges of interest. It also gets sent to the student. The colleges use that information to determine an award letter package or if verification is going to be required. And that's where the student then says, thank you, college, I plan to attend, or no, thank you, college, I decline because I've chosen another college or because I've been awarded funding from another school. A couple of reminders here for you. We are almost to the end. We have an affiliate partnership with Nebraska Inceptia. This is a financial literacy program that all Nebraska students can take for free. Financial literacy on banking, credit cards, renting, how to balance a checkbook, all of those financial literacy opportunities that maybe students aren't familiar with, but as they are entering the world of independence, here's some great opportunities for students to understand money management. There's the code on the third bullet that you will need if a student goes out and does any of these free little workshops. Great information, even great reminders for some of us parents. How to get free help? Call Education Quest. Also, you can use our website to get a lot of free information. Right now, we are currently taking virtual appointments. We are not yet in person, so we are still working from home, but we are doing all virtual appointments through remote access. So if you need help, give us a call. We can set up an appointment. If it's just a quick question, we might be able to even answer it over the phone. Here's a quick peek at our homepage of our educationquest.org website. Notice there on the far right, one new thing that we have is frequently asked questions. This is a new section of our website that we're pretty proud of that gives families an opportunity just to maybe get a quick question answered. Some of the common questions that we get asked pretty much every day, but there's a lot of other tools on there that I talked about tonight. The College Funding Estimator is one of them. You can sign up for a countdown to college emails. Parents or students, you can get those emails. And as a reminder, we want to tell you what's going on for the month and what you should be doing to keep you on task. If you choose to do the FAFSA form yourself, there's free tools on how to do that. Just a lot of great information and resources, such as our blogs and upcoming events. Also remember, follow us on any of the social media outlets to try to get that 250 followers. Every 250 followers, then we'll post a scholarship application or registration form. But we also have new groups that we just now opened up on Facebook. A special group for our seniors, our juniors, and Spanish-speaking audience as well. So go out and check those out. A lot of good information. And the moment you have been waiting for. This is the secret website, if you will, to register for the financial aid scholarship. If you happen to have your phone, you can check out the QR code, and then it should take you right to that registration. Or type in the registration, it should take you there as well. It is a very, very simple application that you can complete. Parents, if you are watching tonight, you can do it for your student. Or if I have students in a classroom, because I see a few counselors joining us tonight with classrooms, that's great. Students, you can go out there and register yourself for it if you want to. But here is the secret link to register for that scholarship opportunity just for joining us tonight for this 1-hour program. And with that, you are welcome to call any of our 4 offices in Omaha, Lincoln, Kearney, or Scotts Bluff, whatever is closest to you, because we've got viewers on here from east to west and north to south. That's great joining us. Remember, all of this is relevant to all of you, no matter where you are watching from. We really appreciate you joining us this evening. Remember to check out our future webinar events that we have coming up. And if you have questions, check out our frequently asked questions. And with that, Reagan, talking about questions, what kind of questions did we get in the chat?
We got some awesome questions. And so thank you everybody for those. And thank you, Joan, for that great information. So helpful. I wish this had been around when I was going to school back in, the olden days. One of the questions we had coming off of YouTube was, what about a high school student, high school graduate, who took a gap year and lives with family? Are they considered an independent student?
Oh, great question. So on the FAFSA application form, there is a section where students, you are going to determine if you are independent or dependent. There are 13 questions, and you have to be able to answer yes to one of those questions in order to be considered independent. The first one being, are you of age 24 or older? Are you married? Are you an orphan, a ward of the court? Are you in a graduate program? Are you a veteran? Are you in a homeless situation? That's just to give you a quick snippet of what some of the questions are. We do have the questions on our Education Quest website. Again, under that frequently asked questions section, you can see a list of all of those questions. But again, you have to be able to answer yes to one of them. So if it's just a gap year and you're still 19 or 20, you probably are going to have to use parent information.
Great. And as a follow-up to that, another part of that question, I'm sorry I should have asked, but what about a non-traditional student who's finishing a degree? Are they considered an independent student?
Again, it's going to be important to check out those 13 questions and see whether or not you can answer yes to one of those questions. And if you do, then yes, you will be considered independent and no parental information is required. But check out those questions and just make sure and see how you fit into them.
Great. A couple of questions with regard to farm income and or small business income. One is, are liabilities considered when it comes to farms, I think especially?
Okay.
Are those? Yeah.
So no, you're good. That's a very typical question. So yes, family farm. Remember, if you live on the farm, you operate the farm, you file Schedule F, then all of those assets are exempt from the FAFSA asset section. You just have to report the income. If you are what we classify an investment farm, then yes, you would have to report all parts of the farm. But if you are an opportunity to exclude it, then you're going to exclude the tractors, the crop, the cattle. Then you will be able to exclude everything about that family farm. But if you fall into an investment, then you have to include it.
Okay. That kind of is a follow-up. This next question is very related. What if you live on a farm and operate it, but it isn't your main source of income?
Again, we probably would have to take a look at the situation individually and see if you're drawing income from it and how, or if you're filing a Schedule F and you're reporting all of your deductions through that. More than likely it's going to be protected and it will be considered a family farm. But it may be a good idea to contact either the colleges or one of us so we can kind of decipher what's actually going on. But it sounds, just from the little bit of information I have, it sounds like it could be a family farm.
Okay. One other question is, what if you have two college students going to school? Do you fill out two FAFSAs? Are they on the same FAFSA? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Woohoo! Great questions. Yes, if you happen to be so lucky to have a couple of college students in your household, or twins or triplets, they will each have their own username and password. They will each file their own FAFSA application. Parents, you can use your account though, your username and your password on each of their forms. But yes, they will each have their own unique ID and they will each have their own unique FAFSA.
Awesome. Everybody, if you have additional questions, we have time for a few more, so please do post those in the chat, and Joan's here to answer those. Joan, while we're waiting, could you put that slide back up that had the information for this super secret scholarship code? I think a couple of people might have missed that, and so I want to make sure that they have that information while we're waiting to see if we have any additional questions.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
You don't want to miss out on that opportunity. So.
And I do see one question that came in here to me asking about whether or not juniors have to file a FAFSA. And that's a good question too. No, we do not want juniors to file a FAFSA. Instead, we encourage you to use the college funding estimator to get an idea of what the results are going to look like for next year. So no, do not complete the FAFSA as a junior. And I even encourage you not to get an ID this early. Make all that for senior year, okay? Just you have to keep track of. But for juniors, I encourage you to do the estimator. We only want seniors and our current college students that have to renew the FAFSA to actually complete it.
Awesome. These are great questions, and well, we might have one more that just came in. Let's see. Oh, can you show the access code for the financial training webinar? Let's see. Sorry. My eyes are, could you also show the access code for the financial training website?
Okay, so actually, if I understand the question correctly, I apologize if this is not right, but if you go to our homepage at educationquest.org, down on the left-hand section down here for upcoming events will be our event calendar. And that's where you can actually see all the upcoming FAFSA webinars that will be happening in October and November. And then you can register for those events. Just click on the day, the corresponding day that says statewide webinar events, and then you can register for that. Yeah, we'd love to have you join us, please.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
I think that's all the questions that we have right now, but I want to remind the audience that you can give us a call, like Joan said, anytime. There's tons of information on the website. Give us a call as you're going through this process. I know like it can seem a little daunting, but it's really not that hard once you get into it. And our college planning professionals here at Education Quest are amazing when it comes to answering questions and just helping people through the process. So I encourage you to take advantage of all the resources that we have. And yeah, we're coming in just under an hour, Joan. So I think we're good to go. But thank you all again for participating and for all the wonderful questions. And best of luck in the FAFSA adventure.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.